Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger. Live the life we love. All right, friends, it's Friday, so it's my PowerPoint day. Thank you once again for letting me come into your home and your hearts and share some of these things. I hope there's at least one zinger that gets to you that you can use for your growth or you want to pass on to someone else that you think would be helpful. And let's go from here. This is called Quest. So the first thing is the mandala, that we are like the center that everything radiates from out to the circumference in an orderly way, in a symmetrical way, in an aesthetic way. So there's a sense of harmony, balance, order, symmetry, and asymmetry, all that goes into the mandala. You focus on the center, and even if your eye wanders to the periphery, somehow the structure of the mandala brings you back to stay centered. And then you have this perspective where you're centered, you don't wobble when you walk, you know what you're about, and hopefully you have found your dharma. There are many, many ways to express this. We can do this like rapid fire so you can get it. It doesn't matter, and there's no chronological order to this, I just threw them together. Jason and the Argonauts, you got to go get the golden fleece. The golden fleece is going to bring health, abundance back to your realm, your kingdom or queendom. And so you take the trip, you take the risk, you put your life at risk in order to do this because it's so important to you personally and to your society. Now you could be like King Arthur, pulling the sword from the stone. The legend has it that only the rightful ruler, the rightful heir, would be able to do it. And of course, all the noblemen tried and they couldn't, and they laughed at this young boy who came, but he pulled it out effortlessly. So Excalibur was given to him, and everybody knew he was the rightful king. He also set up the round table. The idea, again, notice the symmetry. Everybody's equal from the center. And the whole idea was courtesy, chivalry, protecting the downtrodden. And when they say freeing damsels in distress, it wasn't just about men who could take care of women who couldn't take care of themselves. No, it's about freeing oppressed beauty within yourself. So your inner damsel in distress just has nothing to do with gender. It has to do with what prevents you, what prevents us, what prevents me from sharing the beauty that we have inside. And there's some part of ourselves that's willing to fight for that, free that, so we're not oppressed by it. The Holy Grail was another quest. So supposedly Joseph of Arimathea caught Christ's blood in it. It had healing virtues in it, like the cornucopia of the pagan tradition. And who knows where it was scooched away to. And there's all different theories about it, but the whole idea is another chalice that held within it the healing virtues, if you could only behold it. And of course, the Fisher King is one of the stories from the Arthurian legends about how Percival was told when he was becoming a knight not to ask questions, and the first time that he saw the Fisher King, who was wounded in the groin, the generative part, he didn't ask. He was moved to ask, what ails the uncle? But he didn't ask because he was told, knights don't ask questions. And so he missed his opportunity to redeem the kingdom. He traveled on for another 20 years before he had the opportunity to do it. This time he did ask the question and the kingdom got healed. Now it's another interesting thing. Only Percival and Galahad, the only two knights to ever behold the Grail. High honor, you could say. Deep spiritual incarnation. And yet remember, Galahad was the bastard son of Lancelot and Guinevere. That's quite a statement in the medieval times when they still believed if you were an adulterer, you could go to hell for eternity. But yet, as the Tennyson poem says, my strength is the strength of 10 because my heart is pure. So he was also able to see the Grail just from the purity of his heart and not by his birthright. The Buddha, of course, represents the quintessential person who left a life of pleasure, prestige, and status, tried all the disciplines that were available to himself, was really insanely ascetic, and then found the middle way between hedonism and asceticism was right. And he found that place beyond conditioned thinking, nirvana. He was no longer compelled by desire, fear, or social obligation. And he stuck around for 40 years teaching exquisitely. Check out the Abhidharma if you have not. The three wise men, the quest, the star that led them to the manger. How did they know? They had some kind of esoteric knowledge of astrology, or they had a forecast of things to come, And they wanted to go honor the Savior, the little baby in the manger. And of course, crucifixion is essential. If you don't sacrifice yourself, then there can't be the resurrection, the regeneration, the returning back to life after you're willing to sacrifice your ego. And then a part of you spiritually never dies. In the Jewish tradition, there's the burning bush. It didn't consume itself. And remember, seeking is where you're after something, but revelation is where it communicates to you. And it did. And it told Moses, here's the 10 Commandments. You're going to set up your society. You're going to make sure that you are always aware of the orphan, the stranger, the widow, as you once were slaves. Don't forget that. Sometimes they do a good job in that. Sometimes they don't, like all human beings. And then there's always the leap of faith, if you remember the Indiana Jones movie. If you're going to buy into this at some point, you have to be willing to take the step out into the abyss with no guarantee except your faith that the bridge will come. But you got to make the step first. You can't just intellectually know it and then the bridge appears for you because you said, okay, I know you're there. No, first you have to take that risk into the unknown, following the grail, seeking that vision, and take the leap of faith. It could be the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. What's that? It's another symbol for finding something, a treasure, something that's unique to you, something that maybe requires luck, but certainly you got to search for it. It doesn't just pop into your lap. The sun dance was the Native American way of questing, to do for the warrior mentality what they felt the women in their tribe were doing. They recognized that the women in their monthly cycle bleed for the community, and so the men tied themselves up. And they did the same thing to show they're willing to scar themselves, willing to give blood for the life of the community. The fountain of youth, similar to the pot of gold, isn't it? It's another one of the metaphors, whether you do it through alchemy or whether it was the conquistadors who heard about El Dorado or whatever greed was like leading them. But what does the fountain of youth represent? The regenerative force that if you discover it within yourself, everything is made new. It's as if you're born again. Ayahuasca become very, very popular in the last 30 years in the United States with all the shamans, whether they're from South America or Mexico, or whether they're initiated Caucasian people or people of any race that have learned to take these teachings and pass them on. The vine of the dead is to help open you up to realizing your DNA and your genetic connection to every living thing, as well as both inanimate things. And then you'll find your spirit animal. But again, a lot of my images, of course, I've tend to learn them through male models. But in the female tradition, it's exactly the same. Anne Frank will break your heart with her writing, so truthful, so deep, so innocent, so pure, in a horrible situation that didn't end well either, but she showed us something that's affected all humankind. Florence Nightingale, women getting out there, helping guys in battle, dealing with the wounded, dealing with the worst situations when they didn't have the right kind of medical advances that we have to heal people who are injured or wounded in war. People hang in there. Thank you. Betty Friedan, one of the first feminists who brought out for everyone to see the ugliness of patriarchy, the oppression of women in the political system, in the social life, secondary citizens. Unbelievable what we owe to women like that started. Jane Addams here in Chicago, the one that helped to start so many different halfway houses for people living on the street and for schools for young girls and orphans. Great work, questing for justice, questing for truth. And then Catherine Bigelow, first woman to win an Academy Award for directing, right? Breaking through. Come on, the future's female. I'm here to support you. Goddesses and doing what you got to do. And then don't forget, there's always a dark side. Just as the patriarchy has a dark side, so do females have the dark side, as evidenced by the fairy tale Vasilisa and Baba Yaga, where she has to go to get the fire that's gone out in her house. And she has to perform the tasks for Baba Yaga, who will eat you if you don't answer the right questions and do the test correctly. But she was able to get the blessing. But there's the dark side of the feminine. And don't forget the Medusa side, the part in Greek mythology where if you looked her in the face, you turn to stone. How about that? There's a lot about the women's gaze that can petrify any man, petrify anybody. And that's another thing we have to face the darkness in each one of us. But that's part of facing the mandala and understanding the balance of life has both light and dark streams connecting to it. But in the end, I would always say, thank you, Timothy. Is there life after youth? I know there is. I hope that you find your own. Sign up for GabrielHalpern.com. Tell your friends about it. Communicate to me. I love to have one-on-ones off camera with anybody who wants to share anything in their life. But mostly I would like to do it relative to yoga. And then don't forget, as of September 1st, which will be Monday, we'll start our registration for the Mexico vacation. Go to GabrielHalpern.com. Check out the website. Love to have you join us another year down in Puerto Morelos, one of the beautiful little towns on the Mayan Riviera. And don't forget, on September 28th, Flourish, the group from California that does fantastic spiritual happenings and connections for the community, is coming out to Hinsdale. Go to my website, you'll see advertisement for that. And otherwise, have a great day. And for those of you who are celebrating Labor Day, thank you for your labor. Peace.